business is the invocation. Ann, if you're there, please. Ann?
Working. Sorry, I was double muted. Okay, now can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, sorry, thank you. We come before you today to give you honor and praise. Thank you for every gift that we have been given. We thank you for the opportunity to come and gather this day. We ask for your hand of blessing of this meeting of the CPS Energy RAC. We ask that you would guide and direct our meeting so that it is full of wisdom, productivity, and respect for one another. Thank you for helping us to accomplish our work and our goals this day. Amen.
Thank you, Ann. Okay, let me go over a couple of procedural things that we did in the first meeting, and we'd like to try them again here. And that is, we're going to put your name, just your name is all you need to do. Just put your name in the chat, okay? And if you put your name in the chat, then I will put you on the list to ask your question orally. You don't need to type it in because that distracts from you listening. And so just please, just put your name in. I'll get you on the list. And when we get to the break point, we'll get everybody's questions in. If you ask a question, somebody answers it, you've got a follow-up question, go ahead and follow that up. You don't have to get back in the queue. And if we can do that, I think it'll run fairly smoothly. If there's any questions during the process for me that's something you need to let me know, well, again, feel free to put that in the chat, but we're going to try to use this process. I think it worked pretty well. We're getting used to it the first time around. But as you know, in these working sessions, they need to be dialogue. Okay, so now we have nothing else. We'll just start with Rudy and I guess his introduction on the Step Bridge program.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Vice Chair, thank you very much. I thought you all handled our opening session today really great, so I'm looking forward to an equally effective working group number 2. I wanted to provide a lead in to the STEP conversation and you know, more broadly, once we get over to Chad's section, you know, rates can be structured to do all kinds of really, you know, great things depending upon, especially as a municipally owned utility like CPS Energy is, you know, to meet whatever goals and, you know, that the community sets forth. And I would put STEP in that category. You know, STEP has been around for a long time. Rick's going to give you the background on, you know, kind of a view of STEP over the years. You know, and there's been a lot of chatter, you know, and emails, you know, back and forth over the last week or so. You know, I want to assure you that, you know, STEP is one of those programs, you know, that was very, you know, strategically developed back in 2008, 2009 period when the program, you know, began. You know, we haven't spent a dollar, you know, on STEP initiatives that at some point in time have not been approved by our board, certainly approved by City Council. There's a very strict, you know, protocol for how we firm up the accomplishments on an annual basis, and Rick will give you some background on that. But every year, you know, we don't recover STEP funds spent until we have proven to our regulator, the City of San Antonio, that you know, we've achieved the you know, the reductions in demand that we set out for. So you know, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm going to take you through a quick presentation that just lays out where we are with STEP. You know, the STEP program kind of officially ended, if you will. You know, mission accomplished. We achieved you know, more than what we set out to in terms of demand reductions. We did that under budget and ahead of schedule. So when I look at STEP and the criteria for, you know, that established, you know, success or not, You know, I'm comfortable and confident in saying that the STEP program was hugely successful. Our community has won awards for the work that we've done on energy efficiency and demand response programming. And Step Bridge really has just been a program that's allowed us to continue to, you know, to achieve those savings in a manner that is consistent with what has been previously approved. Council has given us that authority through next July to continue STEP, you know, and so, you know, so we've gone down that road. Adrian, can you go to the next, go to slide 4. So recently, this past board meeting, we took some items to the board that required their consideration. That really we have authority. You know, the program has the authority it needs to continue through next July. Our contracts, unfortunately, you know, we typically will contract for services for 3 to 5 year period. Our contract terms were over, and so we could not spend one more dollar after August 31st in order to continue these programs. And every time we've taken these items to the board, you know, as long as I've been here for 10 years, you know, it's always warrants, you know, kind of, you know, spirited debate amongst our board members about, you know, the STEP program and what we're doing, and is it, you know, the right thing, and should we continue? So this past board meeting was no different than anytime we've brought STEP to the board in the past. But what the board did do, the 2 procurement items were to continue to really, to issue a new contract for residential and commercial energy efficiency programs. Those are where our primary rebate programs are housed on both the residential and commercial side. That is where you will see our solar, you know, programs, and the good majority of those programs are, you know, again, those dollars go to the customer. The customer has a contractor on the other side of that transaction that they hire, you know, that we have supported, and those programs have changed over time. You know, as you know, some programs have, you know, kind of run the course of their useful life. We'll take programs off, we'll put programs on, and over the course of STEP, you know, you will have seen that, you know, some programs like, you know, our CFL light bulb program, that's old technology. Now it's all LED. There's no need to incent, you know, light bulbs anymore, because you go to Lowe's or Home Depot and all you get is LED these days. So, you know, these are really behavioral driven programs. So we did get extension again through next July. If there is a new iteration, Flex Step, what we're calling it, into the future, we will have to issue a new contract, and we do have the option to continue with this particular vendor, which is Clear Result, that administers those programs on behalf of CPS Energy. The second item, the weatherization Casa Verde contract, that item really is, you know, we're going back to the drawing board because we really would like to make some of those subcontractors as part of that program prime vendors of CPS Energy. It's you know, just a local business initiative that you know, that our board has been pushing us to be more effective in. If the weatherization program continues, again, they've allowed us to extend the contract that we have with Franklin right now through the next July. So the board did approve both of those requests for, you know, to allow us to continue the programs. Again, had they not voted or voted no, the programs would have ended, you know, at the end of August. We have gotten authority, but it wasn't authority. Go to the next slide, Adrian. Yeah, these are just, again, these are the 2 items just shown a different way. Again, the board did approve these two procurement items. Go to the next slide, Adrian. So there was a lot of commentary from the board. You know, it's clear to staff, and, you know, these are program staff is responsible for administering. You know, I mean, if the board decides they don't want to do them anymore, or if they decide they want to recreate them, we want to get input from, certainly from them, from the community. We want to make sure these programs are tailored in a fashion that, reflects whatever the new goals for energy efficiency programs might be. It is clear that the status quo is not going to be acceptable to our board. They've asked us to do some deep dives into what we think we've accomplished, and we're prepared to do that. We're going to talk about the different efficiency levels of each program. And I'll give you, for instance, weatherization. When you look at it compared to some of the other ways you can achieve energy savings, while that may not be as high up on the scale as some of the other programs, it serves in it part of the community that absolutely we would want to some of the older homes in San Antonio to be weatherized, because that helps them achieve lower bills, and it helps us at the end of the day deliver less energy, which means that our infrastructure, if you will, will last us longer. We don't need to build as much infrastructure if we're being as efficient as we can possibly be with the infrastructure that's already in the ground. So there are various ways that you can really tee up what the benefits of each individual program are, and we're going to have a very detailed conversation with our board about that. We had proposed 10 years of a new program, maybe 5 years, is the right cadence to allow the board more opportunities for input as we go. So how we show customers what we're paying for energy efficiency, that's more a function of our billing system and the constraints of how many line items we can put on a bill. But there are ways that we can be certainly more transparent about what's in that fuel factor, and we're going to talk about all of those to figure out what the best approach there is. But certainly we want customers, whether they're involved in those STEP programs or not, to know that they're paying for it and to be able to ask questions about that. So there's nothing nefarious going on there in terms of how we're presenting it to the bill. It really is just a limitation of our billing system and being able to only really program so many line items on the bill that we send to customers, or that they can see through Manage My Account. So we will do a full ROI to firm up what we believe was accomplished as part of the STEP initiatives. We have put out 2 new RFPs for what we're calling our tried and true programs. That's really the programs that we've made available in the past, and then we have new and innovative programs that we've asked for. We got over 80 responses from companies from across the world, and whatever we decide to present to the board as part of a proposal going forward, I think what's going to have to look a lot different from what it's looked like in the past. So I think a lot like what we're doing with the Flex Power Bundle, you will see packages of options that we will probably present to the board, saying if you want to focus on kilowatt hour savings as a goal, then we believe this is the right package of programs to consider. If you want to focus on low income, maybe you want to focus on programs that help the most vulnerable, that address some of our our utility burden conversations we've been having here at the RAC, then that kind of bundle of energy efficiency programs might look like this. Here's some programs that we've done in the past that we don't believe we need to do going forward. And so really, the takeaways in our last conversation with the board really was an alignment around the thought process that the status quo is not going to be good enough for deciding what we do going forward. And even if we get to a proposal for a go forward program, it's going to have to be based on fact and return that we believe we've achieved through the STEP program, that's going to inform our decision about what we're going to do going forward. So I wanted to kind of cover where we are. I think there were certainly some media coverage on that. I thought it was a great conversation, quite frankly. I mean, those conversations with STEP, as I said, are never easy. But I certainly got the direction that me and my team needed to be able to come back to the board and give them what they need to make informed decisions about STEP going forward. So I think that's my last slide. Adrian, go to the next slide. All right, I'm going to stop there. And Mr. Chair, I will take any questions that anybody has.
Sure. And again, I think it's just call me Reed. So we have a question in the queue from Anita. Please go ahead, Anita.
Hi, everybody. Hi, good morning or good afternoon. Well, it's kind of more of a question slash comment. I think, you know, I'm really looking forward to this discussion. As you said, you know, STEP is always a very interesting conversation to have and something that I think is very educational for a lot of people. I mean, all the years that I've studied it, I'm still learning about STEP, you know. And what I wanted to say is that I think sometimes what's missing is how it started. And I think that that's part of that educational opportunity that we have around STEP. I mean, for me, I like to think bottom line it, the reason why we started STEP, because you know, people are like, well, why STEP? You know, we start getting into the weeds of all the different aspects, but the bottom line was this: it was cheaper. We had to build new power. Bottom line, we had to build new power. We saw that coming. So we invested 849 million-ish, Rudy, correct me, Corey, somewhere.
That's right.
849 million at the time to save 771 megawatts. Instead of paying, and again, Rudy, please correct me, I believe it was 1.3 billion in back in the old numbers. Today that might be, again, I'm not a mathematician, 1.6, 1.7 billion to build a new plant. That was going to take a very long time to permit and so on. So back to why STEP, it was cheaper than building a new power plant. That was just the bottom line. I've heard a lot of people talk about it's a handout, but I think that's because they don't understand that it was a financial strategy instead of building a new power plant. With, again, with the power supply market being volatile, even today we see what a money saver this thing has been. Now, the other side benefits of having STEP, I wanted to make this statement and see if you could talk about this. You know, for me, it's like these three bottom lines. One, it was cheaper. And especially today, since we look at, we're going to have to build out new power again. And second, we need to replace our aging generation units and you know, obviously decarbonize and so on. So again, that fifth fuel being conservation, probably still cheaper. So I would be very interested to see that deep dive, because if we did this back then, today's market and the future forecasting is even more volatile. We're probably going to get a bigger bang for the buck. Number two, and this is something I didn't see early on in my career, is that through rebating, now through the equitable rebating of new technology like solar or batteries and so on, we set a precedent and prevent future defection. Now, way back in the early days of the solar market, people weren't paying that much of attention, but you know what? Have all of those people gone off completely off grid? You think about, and weren't interacting with our grid. If you get rebated, you are tied into the grid, you are grid tied. And so that actually helps our generation diversification in our portfolio as time moves forward. So again, that second piece, rebating advanced technology, of course, we need to, you know, make sure it's equitable, because not every person, you know, we were rebating wealthier people in the beginning, you know, that all has really evolved. But bottom line, rebating new technology helps to prevent future defection, and it helps to, you know, keep that within the grid, and so that we can benefit from that diversification of our generation. The third piece I would like someone to speak about is that, you know, again, for me, I'll bottom line it. Why are we here? Why are we doing what we're doing? Because we're municipally owned. So our shareholders at CPS Energy are the people of San Antonio. And so by, you know, the programs like STEP have this threefold benefit. One, by being cheaper. Second, by preventing defection and having it grid time so we can advance our system. Third is that it improves the lives of the people here in San Antonio. And that's why we give the money to the city every year. I mean, our utility has a huge benefit to the quality of life of the people of our community. So again, I would like to say or speak to, I hope that, I think a lot of people miss those bottom lines because they get into the weeds about all this stuff, and Why are we doing all of this? Well, it's real simple. This is why it's cheaper. And I think we missed that point. Thank you. So if you have any comments there, CPS, I'd love to hear them.
I do, Anita, and you know, you're as close to it as anybody in our community, and I appreciate those comments. I'm not sure I could set them better. You know, back when 2008 time period, right before I got to CPS Energy, you know, we were having conversations about building new nuclear, and those kind of went sideways. We ended up in some lawsuits, and so we were actually looking at building some pretty expensive, you know, generation capacity back then, which absolutely, you know, parlayed into a conversation about, you know, the cheapest form of energy to produce is energy you don't use to begin with. So there's absolutely an economic benefit. I mean, we're growing meter-wise probably a couple percent a year right now. We're setting a ton of meters, but we're only growing about a percentage load-wise, and that differential really is step. You know, so that we have seen, you know, step shows up. You know, again, you always talk about in sports analogies, you know, you want players to show up, you know, in the game. Step shows up in the game. It is a part of our diversified portfolio, you know, strategy of generation, you know, that we have called the fifth fuel. I think some folks, you know, I'm not sure that description is working for us the way it used to anymore. So we're going to have to kind of, you know, talk about that a little bit more. I think
Rudy, I'll tell you just real quick. I think that literally we should just like change our language and say, oh, why step? It's cheaper than building a new power plant. I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in utility speak.
Yeah.
We just need to like bottom line it for the average person out here in our community.
Yeah.
That's why.
You know, I don't think, Anita, it was ever meant to, you know that, you said it. Plants are good. We got a lot of plants coming offline that we're going to be talking about as part of the next working group, you know, session. You know, so you're going to have to come up with a new resource of some type at some point. What STEP has done is slowed the need for when that decision point is going to come. So I really don't have much to add. I thought you covered a lot of the key points very well. I think we just have to continue talking about it.
Let me just jump in here real quick before we get to the rest of the people on the list. Thank you, Anita, for that. Again, I think we're all trying to learn this, and as we go through this, let's kind of keep some questions. If the presenters don't cover it, then we're going to have to pick it up and get some help. But I do believe, listening to what Anita is saying, and I think we're going to have to rework this whole thing, because I think we've heard it pretty loud and clear from all the way from the board through the public that folks just don't understand this program, and some people probably don't even believe that we are saving energy, and maybe some people don't even believe, and I think we need to show them the numbers that maybe it is cheaper to build plants. Okay, so we've got a lot of work to do, and we'll get into that. And thank you, Anita. The next one on the list is Eloisa.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Anita. That kind of goes to the question I had, which was, I really want to understand the overall objectives of even just why we were reducing energy. So that really, I need to kind of help feed into that. And the fact that it was an economic case as well, but I'm also thinking about what are some of the other benefits and the context of the STEP program in general that would be helpful in being able to look at it holistically. I don't think you need to like go down that right now, but I'd like that information shared with us at least. And then the other question that, it won't be too of a surprise is thinking about energy burden and really wanting to speak to that, where, we just mentioned programs that help, low-income folks, and for those that may not know, there's this provisional rate increase that's coming, and so thinking about those consideration, I would like to know how these programs actually impact those that are that are already having problems paying their bills or struggling to pay their bills. So does this STEP program at all alleviate that? And I also would like to know what the percentage is compared to any of these other programs.
So, Eloisa, thank you. I would say that a lot of what Rick's going to cover will give you some background about the various programs. I do think there is an element of addressing the energy burden included in, you know, that certainly is a goal of our weatherization program, is to help those most in need, you know, to make their homes more efficient. So I think there's a portion in STEP that does speak to that. I think the good portion of what you're really interested in is going to be part of our affordability, our various affordability discount programs that are really more part of our kind of our billing and system, you know, and customer outreach programs that we sponsor. You know, we probably need to do a whole session on affordability. You know, that's probably going to be, you know, to give you a bigger kind of clearer picture of how CPS Energy tries to address affordability through our various rate programs that we offer. We've got a number of them. So some here, I think we probably need to put on the program an affordability session, you know, for the future. So I hear you, and we will do our best to try to cover all that, you know, in the right way.
Okay. The next one on the list is Dee Dee.
Rudy, I appreciate, you know, listening to you in the board meeting today, championing STEP. I appreciate that program because it has helped family members. And so I do appreciate that. You know, when I think like when addressing the board and their concerns, and I'm kind of paraphrasing this, but it sounded like one of the board members was saying, well, if we take $80 million from this STEP program and take it off how much money we need for, you know, to save the utility, then that would lower the amount of money that we need to ask for in a rate increase. But if you take away weatherization programs, that is going to cost some people's rates to go up because their homes are not efficient. And, you know, these efficiency programs are life-saving. We see that in the summer, like our hot summers, although thankfully we haven't been as hot this year. You know, windows, all the weatherization can help people stay safe in their homes. And we saw that during, you know, winter storm Uri. So I would hope that like we look beyond like, okay, we might need to build another plant. Building another plant isn't going to keep people cool in their house during the summer or warm during another winter storm because they're going to have to use, you know, they're going to have to use that AC or that heater even more. So I would hope that, and I think you could do that, Rudy, is show the board like the human aspect of this, like how many people actually benefit from this. Poor people, working class people, senior citizens. I think that's a big one too, is that the people that benefit from these programs are vulnerable. So thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments, Dee Dee. And what I would say is this, you know, you're not going to offset, you know, if we decide we need 10% rate increase or whatever the number is, you know, you're not going to take $80 million off of that 10%. What would happen if you do away with the STEP program is we still need what we need, you know, for operations, but ultimately you would be reducing the fuel factor by that, you know, $3.50, you know, a month that most residents pay. For commercial, it'd be more than that. So they would, so the effects of the rate increase would be lessened because there would be, you know, a reduction in your fuel factor. So net, you would see, you know, you wouldn't see as big of an increase, but you know, the rate request is going to be what the rate request is for all the reasons that we have to prove up that we need it. But so that's kind of what they got, you know, just for the benefit of the group. That's really what they got focused on, and that is a reality. I mean, if you did away with STEP, there would be a $3.50-ish reduction in your fuel factor.
Yeah, Rudy, I think a lot of these questions are going to be answered in the future, and in the next presentation, and I appreciate that. Also, I think the big confusion with a lot of people, maybe, and perhaps I'm wrong, is STEP is a reimbursement program, okay? And it's run through the fuel adjustment, so that other than the council approving it, which has been done, it is a reimbursement program, and it does lower their overall, could potentially overall bill, but it doesn't relate to the rate increase. So
That's right.
let's go to the next question, which is Al. Al Rodriguez?
Okay, here I am. Can you hear me?
Can now, yes.
All right. As we incentivize, the CPS incentivize or supplements the solar and others, are there any matching or state grants that can incentivize CPS to, in other words, can that be funded federally or state, seeing as how the federal government is giving away so much money? Also, a side comment on the windows on the weatherization programs that I have gone to visit in the past years. Windows are not really upgraded, other than a dark screen is put on there to cut the sun coming in. They're not putting in double pane windows or anything like that. So it helps, and but it doesn't do so much on the cold weather. So anyway, main question is incentives. Are there matching federal grants that can help CPS achieve that goal to continue STEP?
Yeah, Al, the great question. I think a lot of the drivers at the federal level for, there are solar production tax credits that help buy down the overall cost of some of the solar programs that our customers benefit from. So there are federal incentives that do factor into the financial picture of why somebody, may or may not be able to afford solar, and all of our solar installers are really good at accessing those. CPS Energy, it's a lot easier working with the city to accept federal funds than for those to come directly to CPS Energy. I don't know that there's a lot of matching grant programs available to take the money that we might put towards rebates and extend those out even further. I do know that there's the big infrastructure package that's going through the federal government right now that will do all kinds of things. I have not seen anything specifically that would further incent solar installations, but certainly, so Al, the answer to the question, the quick answer to the question is not a lot of federal help out there for CPS Energy to access, but certainly there are programs directly for our customers.
Okay, thank you. Anita, do you have another question?
Yeah, actually, a question, let's comment, correct me if I'm wrong, Rudy. So when we talk about how, if we did not have STEP and it would, potentially reduce the bill by $3.50 on the fuel adjustment, and that it's not directly related to our rate increase, I would counter that with, I believe that it is related, because again, if we forecast that out, and in terms of building out new generation instead of pursuing conservation, our rate increase, it's a direct correlation, because our rates will go up much more because building new generation is more expensive than conservation.
Okay, thank you, Anita. I understand. Okay, let's move on to the next presentation. I think maybe I'll answer more of these questions. Thank you. Rick?
Okay, thank you, sir. Very good. So if we can pull up the slide deck. While we do that, so we've put together, quite a package of slides. They run some 60+ slides. Don't plan to go through every one of them in detail today, but what we wanted to do is give you context and details on the programs that we operate in STEP. We got sort of the list of questions from the meeting where you said you wanted more details, and so we've tried to lay that out, and we've done that for each one of our programs. We've also got some maps that we show you And of course, we can produce more data, but hopefully this helps give you a flavor for what we're doing in the current programs. But to start, I wanted to provide a little more context on the history of STEP, you know, how we have historically looked at the program, you know, how we measure that we're achieving the original goals. To Anita's point, you know, it was spelled out in the ordinance that created STEP, right? It was about reducing the need for a power plant. And so we geared a lot of the accountability and reporting requirements to verify that we're actually doing that. And so we'll get into a little bit of that detail. So if we go to the next slide, this is a graph, this is the visual. We've shared this every year with our board that basically shows where we are on our path to achieving that original goal. 771 megawatts was the target. You'll see, as Rudy's mentioned earlier, we achieved that early, 1 year early. And currently, through the bridge program, we've been able to continue that. And currently, we're at 926 megawatts of load reduced. And so it certainly has been a successful program, and largely driven because customers have embraced STEP. You know, if you look at the trajectory of the graph there, the early years was a little tough, you know, going as we were standing up new programs, and we had kind of an inflection point there around 2015, and then it really picked up after that, and lots of technologies came to, you know, maturity, LED light bulbs, solar, some of the things we'll talk about here in today, and then you start to see sort of that upward growth and to where we are today. So. If we go to the next slide, you know, one of the things that we've tried to really do in STEP is to offer a broad portfolio of programs. You know, we understand, you know, not every customer is the same. Folks have different objectives, different financial situations, you know, different priorities, different willingness to embrace technology, things of that nature. And so we try to develop programs that match every need. And really at a high level, what we're showing you here is how that has happened, you know, across the broad categories of programs that we operate. So we've got solar programs, we've got demand response, we've got commercial energy efficiency programs, residential energy efficiency programs, and then weatherization. And you can see pretty even split in terms of the spending in the programs, as well as in the megawatts that we've been able to achieve. And so at a broad, you know, at a broad level, that's been an objective, right? Is have that balanced portfolio, and be able to maintain that over time. So if we go to the next slide. So again, STEP was created by a city council ordinance that was approved by our board, and then it was approved by the city council back in 2009. That ordinance clearly spelled out the goal of reducing 771 megawatts. It fixed a budget, $849 million, our maximum budget, and it gave us a time frame to do that. So it was a broad ordinance in the sense that it set a goal and it set a budget, but it didn't prescriptively tell us exactly how to do it, right? It gave us the freedom to manage the portfolio as we needed. That said, with that freedom also came a bunch of accountability requirements and reporting requirements, and those are baked into the ordinance, clearly spelled out. And so every year we have to produce an annual report done by a third party that evaluates each of the programs and verifies that the energy savings that we claim can be substantiated. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we do that. But you know, at a high level, you know, we've got to estimate energy demand savings. We got to evaluate the cost effectiveness of the program. We've also included in that report recommendations for improving or adjusting the portfolio of programs we offer. In addition, we do quarterly reports that are submitted to city staff that have a whole bunch of data about participation. It includes maps on where, you know, where the customers who are participating are located. All of that is spelled out in the ordinance as required, and we have been complying with that from the beginning. And all of those reports are available at the City of San Antonio's Office of Sustainability website. There's a link there on the page, and what we've included there is a photo of a cover of a report, just so you know what to look for, and all of those are there and archived. So if we go to the next slide. just a little more on the accountability. We talked about the annual report and the quarterly reports. The ordinance also spelled out that we had to do at the end of STEP a wrap-up evaluation on the effectiveness of the program, whether the goals were achieved, whether the objectives were achieved, and then whether the program was worth continuing. And so that report was produced in late 2019. There's on the far left is a photo of the cover there. It was done by a consultant, ICF, that is a large national consulting firm, specializes in energy efficiency. That report is also publicly available, and it really serves as a wrap-up of what the STEP program accomplished over the 11 years at that point that it was produced. If we go to the next slide. So I told you about all these reports we do. You know, we produce lots of data in there. What I want to try to do here is just at a simple level is explain what we try to do in those reports. And the comment was made earlier that, you know, we've got to demonstrate that it's real, right? Some folks may think these are just giveaway programs and where's the benefit? And what we try to do in these analysis is very specifically identify the energy savings and the demand savings that come from the programs. And we do that through meter data. And so what we're showing you here is an illustration of that from one of our programs, which is our demand response program. And so what you see here is the process that we do to, in fact, demonstrate that there is bona fide energy savings being achieved. And so what you see there is a comparison of a load graph with and without one of our demand response program days. And you can clearly see where the lines separate there. That's energy savings being achieved. The gap in between those two lines there towards the peak, those measure the energy savings and demand savings. And so we directly quantify that. We do this for every program. And fortunately, today we have 15-minute interval data, so we have the granularity that is needed to be able to do this process. So again, we've been doing this since the beginning. We continue to do this. This is how we are able to develop the estimates that roll up into our reporting. So if we go to the next slide. So we do the energy savings estimates. We develop all of that data. The next piece is then we look at the cost effectiveness of achieving that savings. Of course, every time we don't have to generate a kilowatt hour, right? We're saving fuel, we're saving operating expense, and so that has value. And so what we do with our cost effectiveness test is to directly measure program by program what the value of the avoided energy is and capacity, what that avoided value is, and then we divide that by program cost. And that formula gives us what we call a UCT. We always talk in terms of UCTs, the utility cost test. It basically says, what is the value of that savings in relation to the cost of the program? And a score greater than 1 means that the benefits outweigh the costs. And so you can see there on the right some examples of programs where, you know, program by program, for every year, we can tell you what our cost effectiveness was for that year. Now you'll see, and Rudy referenced this earlier, it's going to vary, right? There are some programs that are very cost effective, and then there are some that may be less so. Casa Verde Weatherization is the one that gets the most attention. It has a score less than 1. So we know that. We know that it's a little bit lower on the scale. We still think there's value in that program for lots of other reasons. The important thing is the blend of the entire portfolio. And so you can see there that portfolio UCT is a 3.26. We think that's, you know, that's a good, well, we know that's a good number because we track it across the industry and benchmark that. But I think that's how we sort of put together these portfolio of programs, again, using some really cost-effective programs and some that maybe are less so, but really using the blend to achieve our overall objective. I want to make one last point on this slide because I think it's important is, you know, folks may ask, well, you know, how can you get these really high UCT scores? You know, you got some programs that are a 4 and a 5. And one of the things that we've learned over time through STEP is that, you know, we can really leverage investments that the customers want to make for their own benefit. And so thermostats are a great example where, you know, Nest thermostats, they're great gadgets. Customers love them. They can, talk to their thermostat or communicate through their phone. Customers want to make those investments. And so if we can provide an incentive to sort of nudge them to do that and then join up with our DR program, we're leveraging the customer's investment, right? By only providing a portion of the cost, but getting the benefit of being able to reduce that load. And that's how we're able to achieve these higher UCT scores. In the early days of STEP, we would have bought the entire thermostat, right? And that was, and not only bought it, but we would have installed it. And so that has a high cost to doing that. And so technology has enabled us to make sort of these leveraged investments to help improve our UCT. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see a view of that UCT. If you look at the line, kind of disregard the columns, those are each of the different program segments. But if you look at the line at the bottom that has the blue line there, that's the overall portfolio. And you can see what I'm talking about, how, year in and year out, we've been able to increase the cost effectiveness of the program. And at the end of the day, that's how we're able to achieve the 771 goal under budget, was leveraging those investments and tweaking the portfolio to increase that cost effective score. So I think with that, we're at a break in the presentation. So if we go to the next slide, if there's any questions at this point, happy to entertain those.
Yeah, we got a couple of questions. We got a couple of questions in the queue. Michael Kinnick is first.
Yeah, can we go back to slide 8? So I guess my question here, or maybe I'm trying to better understand this. So I get the idea that we want to show what's the return on investment for these costs for the STEP program, and that's important. But what's going into that equation is avoided fuel cost and plant capital on the top there. But it seems to me that if we didn't have this program and people didn't save energy and they had to buy the energy, that fuel cost is something the customer would bear. So that's not a real return on investment to the utility. It's a return on investment to the ratepayer. It seems to me like the only real avoided cost to CPS is the plant capital. So I'd like to know what the UCT is if you take that avoided fuel cost out, because that's not a real savings to CPS. We would have passed that cost on to the customer. So, is there a real return on investment to CPS, putting aside the avoided costs by the customer?
Hey, Michael, this is Chad Hoopengarner. I'm here in the room with Rick, and we were just kind of talking about your question and hypothesizing the best way to answer it. And I think what I would say is this is from the customer's view. Since we're a cost recovery company, whatever something costs us, it does cost the customer, right? Plus the city payment portion that has to then, get transferred to the city, and then we still have to cover the same, this amount of cost. So if I think about it this way, bring your own thermostat, 5.86. That means for every dollar of cost the customer is paying, they're avoiding $5.86 of cost they could be paying.
Yeah, but you're blending these two together. Then it seems to me like you want to split this out and show me a UTC for the avoided fuel cost. In other words, what are we saving the customer? And then show me a UTC for avoided plant capital. What are we saving CPS? You're bundling these two together and showing this great number, but I don't know if most of that 2.6 CP UTC is helping the customer or if it's helping the overall CPS. And so from a customer point of view, I'm only getting a benefit if I'm the one that you helped with the STEP program. Everyone else is paying for that program. Don't get me wrong. I think it's good to help the customer, but I think that you're not really telling the whole story when you combine these two into one UCT, when there's really a UCT for the customer and a UCT for CPS costs. Over.
So on the customer view versus our view, we could break out the fuel costs from the plant capital and calculate them differently, but the customer is going to pay for the plant capital investment as well. So that's also from their point of view, I would argue. But
not every customer's getting avoided fuel costs, because not every customer is able to take advantage of the STEP program. Some people have already, say, purchased a new home and already on their own paid for energy efficiency. They didn't benefit from the STEP program. And again, I'm not saying don't help the customer. I'm saying it's a little misleading when you put these together. And I think maybe we have that one put together, but have separate UCTs broken out to show where that savings really is with the customer or overall CPS, which is all the ratepayers.
Hey, Michael, fair point. I will tell you that what we're showing you here is a view from the utility holistically, right? So, if we think about the benefits to all customers from the savings, right? That's what we're quantifying here. There's a separate view that we could take. There's something called a participant cost test, which is a different view of this, which really looks at, if I'm the individual customer buying the thermostat, what does it look like to me? And we do track that, and we have that data. We're not sharing it here because we were trying to talk more high level, but that's something we could follow up with to show you what it looks like to the participant. And so you would look at, like, for example, their bill savings, their energy savings, their rebate value, and so forth, and that would give you a little different view of that whole thing.
Again, another way maybe for me to spin what I'm saying is what I heard Anita say earlier, and I heard people confirm that the idea of the STEP program was one of the basic ideas was for CPS to avoid those future capital costs, or at least put them off. So again, if you don't separate it out, we don't know how much avoidance we've really had.
Got it. Yeah, we've captured that as a follow-up item, and we'll come back to that. Thank you.
Okay, Michael, you and Anita are both correct, and I think where we get into the weeds here is when we start trying to break this down by program, as opposed to an overall savings to the utility. Dana's next.
Well, I just wanted to, I agree with what Michael's trying to get at. The STEP program is, as you pointed out, is a rebate program. They charge, they give away the money and to all those things. I'm sure it helps, but then they charge everybody else. So if you look at it that way, it's revenue neutral, or should be. And so I'm not sure I see the benefit of that. And I'm not frankly sure that I see that we've actually saved the potential for having to build future generation. And on top of that, it's the slides you showed in previous presentations show that when you do that with solar, it actually costs CPS money. So it's actually revenue negative. And it's part of the problem here that's making CPS in financial difficulty and needing a rate increase. So I'm not sure what good it's done if it's a net neutral thing, and also the CPS has done a very good job of not disclosing this to the rest of the ratepayers, and hiding it in the rate adjustment, the fuel adjustment bill. So, I mean, I do think that you need more work on Michael's question and analysis, and I don't see it.
Okay, we've got a question now from Peter. Peter, are you on? Peter Onfrey?
Hold on just a second.
Okay.
All right, can you hear me now?
We can, go ahead.
Okay, great. Thanks for taking my question, Reed. My question is on slide 9. The UCT for 21 is showing a negative. And so the previous slide on 8 is for 20. And improving the cost trend, is that a trend that you foresee? If we were to present 21 where it is today we're in a negative. And can you speak to why that is? And do you foresee that as a trend?
Hey, Peter, I'm sorry, I don't follow when you say that there's a negative on that chart. Those values should all be positive. Yeah, FY21.
So if the blue line going across, am I misreading that? Where the blue line is going across, is that still averaging out at?
Okay, so if you look at the table, and there's the last row that says portfolio total. You see it says 1.51, 1.72, 1.86. Can you follow me there on the bottom?
Yes.
So those are the values in that line is showing. And so when you get to 2021, it's got a 3.26, which is a positive value and higher than the year before. So it is trending upward, which is good.
I see what you're saying. So then that's the value. So that's the positive that is showing. It's not
correct.
The negative. Okay.
Yeah. So higher in this case, higher is better.
I was misreading that.
Yeah, higher is better in this region.
Yeah, and I would just add that 20 was kind of an anomaly. That really is reflective of the challenge we had in a COVID year of getting into homes and doing some of the things we normally do. So there's a reason why it took a bit of a dip in 20, and that we're back up because our activity level is back up.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Okay, back on this question. I won't take much time on it, and as we discussed in the beginning, I don't think anybody wants us to hear what we know, but we need, if we would, we probably need to go back and look, if you could, somebody, go back, maybe Chad, and look at the model that we used in 2009, which was 2 cash flow streams. One was a cash flow stream on making an investment in a plant, and the other one was a cash flow stream for making these investments. And we compared those 2 cash flow streams, but that was in a different world and a different time. So if you look at those 2 cash flow streams, it'll address Michael's concerns, because you've got a cash flow stream of building a plant versus a cash flow stream of doing the STEP program, and the STEP programs got to be less than the other one on a discounted basis to 0. All right, let's move on. You could finish on to the next. Move on to the next section, Rick.
Okay, we'll do. So if we go to the next slide, slide 12, here we're going to get into a lot of the details, and I won't cover every slide here, but let me give you a flavor of what we've done with this section here. Is what we're providing you is a list of all of our current programs. You'll see those categorized there. The bolded headers are each of the sections or the headings of a program category. So for example, Weatherization is one of our largest programs. You'll see we have their residential energy efficiency, commercial energy efficiency, and then the bulleted are each of the programs under that category. Likewise for demand response and for solar. And then some of our newest programs are in the electric vehicle category, and those are listed there as well. So this is the roster of current programs that are available to customers. On the right-hand side, you see the logos of partners who help us deliver some of these programs. For the most part, we use third parties to help us with outreach and engagement to customers, whether that means going out and helping them identify energy savings opportunities, helping them quantify savings, after the fact, we help them with the application process and even the payment process. So we use third parties for a lot of that work, and we've grown that roster over time to really help us kind of scale up our capabilities in this area. So if we go to the next slide, want to hit at one of the points that really hit home. One of the points that Rudy made is that the roster of programs that we offer has evolved over time. What you can see at the top there is the number of programs we've offered in a given year. And so when we first started, it was 13 programs back in 2009. That grew, to 26 programs in 2016. And here lately, it's 19 programs. We put an asterisk on that because part of that is we've consolidated programs in some cases where we had for example, we had thermostat programs. We had like 5 or 6 different programs. We consolidated those just because it was easier to report and to track. So today the number is 19. It doesn't mean we've closed any programs here recently, but it's just consolidating those. The second row shows you then which was the largest savings program in a given year. And again, in the early days, CFLs were big. We sunset those programs back in, I think, 2011, 2012, when LED lighting really became big. And then you can just sort of see the evolution of that. Today, solar is our biggest energy savings program, as it's really taken off in this area. And then we just share some highlights there of, again, the evolution of things over the years. And we expect that evolution to continue, as technology changes, standards change, code changes, all of these things, make this a very dynamic space. And so we've tried to adjust. And then, of course, we had COVID, right? And COVID was a disruptor for some of our work. And we've had to adjust to that as well. So if we go to the next slide, well, maybe I'll stop there, see if there are any questions before we proceed. Okay, if not, we'll keep going.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, we'll keep going. Okay, so if we get to the next section, so what we've done here is for each of our programs, we have given you a description of the program, when it was launched, some statistics like, how much we spend per year, the participation over the last 5 years, how a customer applies, what the goal and the outcomes are for each program. And then we've given you a table over on the right-hand side that shows you the last 5 years participation. And the example we have here is weatherization. Just to help you with kind of how to read this, if you look at that chart, you'll see that we, for 17, 18, and 19, had over 3,600 customers in the program, 3,700 in 2020. 2021 is the COVID year. And this is a case where, a lot of this work, well, all of this work occurs in customer homes. We had to ramp the program down because of COVID. And so you'll see that number in blue went down by about half as we shut the program down mid-year and then started bringing it back late in the year. So one of the things we did was transition to sending customers kits. So we would send them some energy saving measures in a box. And if customer was interested, we would mail that to them. And you can see kind of how we help fill the gap there with that. If we go to the next slide, then for each of the programs, we show you the last 5 years budget. For weatherization, we included a 6th year, which is the year we're in now, just so you can see as we're ramping that program back up, this is our projection for what we'll spend this year. If we were to continue, again, the goal from the start had been to do about 3,600 homes a year. So we're working our way back towards that, and you can see what that looks like for 22. So I won't go into every program, but the first section, if we go to the next slide, we talked about weatherization. The next set of programs are residential programs. Why don't we just click through these? Adrian, if you can just keep advancing, you'll see the view for each program. We'll just continue advancing. Why don't we jump all the way to slide 32? We'll just keep advancing through here. Okay. So we get into the small business. These are our commercial efficiency programs. These are grouped together. One of the things I'll tell you about our commercial programs is we group these programs by segment of customer. One of the things that we've learned is that You really have to have an integrated view of a segment of customers to be able to serve them. You know, we have such a diversity of small, large government customers that it works a lot better if we organize them that way. And so what you see here is our small business program, which we launched in 2016. Now, we had small business programs before that, but this is when we launched it as a grouping. And you'll see there, if you look at the participation graph, 2021, this was another area where COVID did have an impact. With small businesses, this is very much a door-to-door, you know, personal engagement with a business owner. And so due to COVID, and of course they had other preoccupations, right? A lot of times they were shutting down for business. So you'll see that big drop off in 2021 due to COVID. And again, these programs are now ramping back up in 21. If we go to the next slide, this is the program budget for the last 5 years. We'll go to the next slide. And you'll see what I'm talking about here. So now this is our large commercial and industrial customer program. Again, energy efficiency. You'll see here that I'll tell you, most of these are, you know, these are very large customers who have been very proactive in energy savings. Of course, they've got really big bills. If they can make meaningful upgrades, lots of energy savings, lots of financial benefit, and so they have been some of our most active participants in the programs. If we advance to the next slide, and then one more. Schools and institutions, this is again one of those categories of programs that we drive. Think of you know, government agencies, school districts, the city, the county. That's who participates in these programs. These are really geared towards hands-on engagement, helping the customer develop a master plan for their energy use, helping them with benchmarking, and then helping them identify projects that they can pursue. And in most cases, you know, these are folks who manage portfolio of buildings. So a school district could have 100 schools. And so we help them identify the best efficiency opportunities, and then we help them go through the rebate process. And so you can see there the number of customers served. This is not the number of rebates, this is the number of customers. Each customer may have, you know, 50 or 100 rebates underneath them. And so if we go to the next slide, you'll see the dollars.
Hey, Rick, I'm sorry. Can you go back to that last slide? This is one area, you know, it's kind of hard, you know, always to kind of catch, you know, you know, there are real savings, and then there are, you know, kind of maybe public benefits, maybe not the best word, but, you know, by helping schools save on their energy bill, you know, that allows them to take, you know, limited tax dollars, you know, and, you know, do other things with it that, you know, while there certainly is an energy benefit, savings benefit to CPS Energy, you know, you take those dollars and, you know, there's a benefit to the school district that as a whole, as a taxpayer, you know, I benefit from my tax dollars because the schools are able to be more efficient in their operations. So I just wanted to stop and make that point. There are those kind of benefits, you know, kind of public benefits as a municipally owned utility that I think sometimes are a little squishier, you know, to catch, that I just wanted to point out, because it's one of those areas that I think is really, really important to just the broader, you know, tax base, if you will, that I think, you know, just needed to be mentioned. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Rudy. I was going to make the point, and just to tack on to what Rudy said there. You know, again, this is a big area of focus, and you can see the dollars there. It's $4 million in FY21. As budgets are tight, you know, like our customers are looking for opportunities to save, and really there's benefits across the community when a big agency can find savings opportunities. So if we go to the next slide, I think we'll skip this one and go to the next one. Well, no, it looks like we may have some questions.
No, we're not going to, please, can you hold on just a second? We have some questions, please. So the first person on the queue is Al Rodriguez.
Okay, on slide 36, regarding the school districts, do all school districts, colleges, and universities participate in the program? And in speaking the school language, what grade would you give, let's say, Judson ISD versus Northside ISD?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I would tell you that yes, every school district participates in one of our programs, you know, and we've seen that grow over time. I would tell you that I don't know that we have anybody who maybe the right way to think about it is we have some school districts that are early adopters, right? They're the first ones to try out programs. They're aggressively looking for opportunities. I don't want to get into grading, you know, grading our customers, but one of the neat things about the school sector has been that they all talk to each other. And one of the things we've seen is that once we can build some trust with some of the early adopters, and Judson is one that stands out in relation to our demand response program. They talk to the others and sort of bring them along, and that's how we're able to build sort of that trust and that engagement. So I think schools are definitely leaders in this area.
Can you, at some point, just so that we can also bring some of the other school districts in, can we say how much Judson versus East Central versus San Antonio versus Northside versus Northeast, especially Northside, Northeast, and San Antonio being the largest? I understood at one time that the smaller school districts were getting bigger rebates.
Yeah, I think that was true at one time early on, that some of the early adopters were earning bigger rebates. We'll make that a takeaway, is to see how we can give you a view. I know we used to do a view of the education sector in total, including colleges and universities. Now, whether we can do customer by customer breakdowns, I will have to check on that, but we'll make that a takeaway.
Okay, thank you. Al, is that all for you?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Eloisa?
Thank you. I think that just from what I'm hearing so far, there's a lot to improve on, a lot of opportunities to think about this program differently when we think about effectiveness. My specific questions go to these different programs I was looking at, where you explained kind of that return on investment earlier, and then now as we're getting down into these programs, the amounts of funding that is spent annually, and then the number of customers that have participated in these over 5 years, right? So annually, so that number times 5, and the number of customers. So when I did just some simple math, I was looking at how just some, you know, per customer, the potential, the investment for that customer. And so I see that there's you know, for like weatherization, there was I can't remember exactly the number, 3,800 or something, but for small business, that's double that, it's about 7,000. And then for the C&I solutions, that goes up to about 14,000. And so my overall question is, can you provide this data in a way that we're understanding how that investment based off of for each of those customers, like who's benefiting from these programs, and who may be burdened by these programs? I think it gets back down to some basic questions around affordability and reliability. So for me, I keep thinking, what is the effectiveness of this program in relation to who it is serving?
Okay, yeah, we're capturing that as an action item, is to give you another view of that. I will tell you, we're going to share some maps here in a minute that give you a view of the geography, and we've got lots of data on, different by council district, which programs are the highest uptake, which are the lowest. I think the other thing that would be beneficial is we can show you, to your point, is what some of these things cost. So, for example, if I'm going to replace air conditioning unit of my house, well, how much does that cost me, and how much is the rebate, right? And we've got lots of programs where we, will help pay for a portion of the cost of the equipment, but not everybody has funds to pay for an air conditioning replacement. So what else is available, right? And so we do, for example, offer free tune-ups for existing air conditioning units. Well, what's the value of that? And we have a table that can show you all of the different values, as well as the programs that are free to customers. Weatherization is a good example. It's free to customers. The benefit is $5,000 worth of upgrades to your home. So I think all of that goes into the question you're asking, and we can definitely bring back more detail to help drive some of that discussion. And I think Chad wants to chime in here as well.
Yeah, I was just going to add, Eloisa, I think your question is phrased differently, but is very similar to Michael's question after I finally figured out what he was asking. Sorry about that, Michael. But I think it's what does it look like for participants versus what does it look like for non-participants? And I would tell you, sure, that the participants have a certain level of benefit because they're a direct participant and they're implementing a measure. The non-participants still have a benefit, right? Yes, they're paying. They still have a benefit. That is, the peak demand of our system is down, so we didn't have to build new generating capacity that they would have otherwise been paying for. But I think it's a fair request to kind of break it down between those two views.
Okay.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that. I just have a follow-up to my question, Reed.
Sure.
In Rudy's example about where we paused for the school program, he specifically pointed out, that this allows the schools to have a benefit to be able to have that savings for something else that's, serving the common good in the community. So when I think of these other programs that have a high benefit, especially commercial and industrial and others that that have a higher investment, that isn't necessarily for the public good, right? That might be more for a for-profit organization. And so I emphasize that because it is important that we're looking at this information, especially as a public utility, not just in the dollars. The dollars need to make sense, but we also need to be effective in the programming itself. So just want to call that example out, especially since you mentioned it.
Okay, thank you very much, Eloisa. That's excellent point. Also, you're getting ready to show a bunch of slides, Rick, by council, but I think we need the committee to understand that it's not just people in council districts that can benefit from these programs, unless I'm mistaken.
No, you are correct. There are customers who live in suburban cities or in Bexar County can also participate. But yeah, you're right. The graphs we're going to show you are by council district.
But I don't want people walking away from here saying all we saw is benefits to citizens in the city of San Antonio, even though we have a large number of ratepayers that are not citizens of San Antonio.
That is correct.
Don't want that misunderstanding. Okay, go ahead, Rick. Thank you.
Okay. Again, I'll skip over some of these slides. This next grouping of programs is our demand response programs, which is thermostats, lots of different thermostat offerings that we have for customers. And so this is Smart Thermostat. This is our oldest program. This is where we used to go out and install thermostats for customers for free, and it had a lot of success with it early on. We've still got about 100,000 of these thermostats out there in the field, and they've worked really well for us, and they help us reduce a significant amount of load on a peak day. If we go to the next slide. So you'll see the budget here is declining. That's because we're not currently installing as many we've really backed off on the direct installation because most customers want a Wi-Fi thermostat nowadays. And so you'll see that while this program is declining, the other programs, so if we go skip ahead to the next one, we get to the smart devices, and the first one here is Nest. These programs are the ones that are really taken off over the last 5 years. And this is where a customer, installs a device of their choice and then connects it to our program and is available to basically reduce load on a peak day. And in return for that, we make a $30 payment to them at the end of the summer for being on the program. So if we go to the next slide, and then to the next one, you'll see here the device counts, went from 9,000 in FY17 to 31,000 here in FY21. If we go to the next slide, next one. So power players. So this program launched in 2017. Many of you may receive these notifications that we send you on a peak day or the day before a peak day, asking you to reduce energy. And we send this out to about 300,000 customers. We include tips on things that you can do to save energy. And then after the event day, we send you a follow-up communication with a ranking of how you saved relative to your neighbors or similar customers. This program, the messaging has been very effective. On a peak day, we can reduce 30 megawatts of load from folks voluntarily making adjustments to their energy use. So if we go to the next slide, this is a very cost-effective program for us, and it really has worked well. You'll see there we spend about $1 million a year on the program. Okay, going to the next one. Our commercial industrial demand response program. This is where we provide incentives to large customers to reduce load voluntarily on peak days. Now, when I say voluntary, what I mean is they actually sign an agreement with us at the start of the summer, telling us what they will do, how much load they will shed, but then they're in control of the actual reduction. So we send them a notification on the day that we need them to reduce with at least 2-hour advance notice. And then if they reduce, and we verify this all with meter data, they will earn a payment from us. And this gets back to the point of where STEP has a benefit for everybody, right? Because on a peak day, when the market is tight, when conditions are tight, we can basically push a button and reduce 250 to 300 megawatts of load. And that has a lot of value for us in terms of flexibility, in terms of not needing to turn on a power plant, not needing to buy energy. And so for doing that, we offer the customer an incentive that they earn at the end of the summer. This has been a popular program. We've got 754 different large customers who are on this program. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see we pay out about $5 million each summer for their participation. And that's in total, that's an aggregate across all the customers. Okay.
Okay, I just have one question. How many of these thermostats will work without Wi-Fi?
So the thermostats that we have today are Wi-Fi connected. They have to be Wi-Fi connected for us to be able to communicate to them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. How many of them work without Wi-Fi?
Well, they have to be connected for us to be able to join our program.
Then I guess the answer is none?
Yeah, so none, yeah.
Okay, thanks. That's all I need.
Mm-hmm.
I just need to understand that.
Okay.
Okay, let's go ahead, Rick.
Okay, we'll go to the next section. The last category of we got 2 more categories. So, okay, so this is solar. This is our solar program. Again, this is our biggest energy saver today. Solar rebates have become, you know, I mean, they've been popular for about 5 or 6 years as the cost of solar has come down. At the same time, we've been lowering our rebate to reflect that lowering cost. But you can see the uptake there, about 4,400 rebates last year. This is residential and commercial, and the rebates are for customers who want to install, who want to own their own system, and this can be their house or their business where they install that. So if we go to the next slide. So you know, on the previous slide, I talked about the uptake has been going up. You can see here the budget has been going down. This is because we've been lowering that rebate. And today, we pay about 10% of the cost of the system. In the early days, it was like 50%. So, I mean, we've really lowered that rebate amount and still seen uptake. And again, that's driven because the technology has become more cost effective for customers. Okay, we'll go to the next 2 slides. Just community solar, we mentioned that here. We've got 2 community solar programs we've done. The next slide is our solar host program. We'll go to the next one, which is where we installed the systems on customer homes, and they leased us their roof. And so we make a payment to them for leasing us the roof. Customer does not own the system. We worked with a third party to install those, and we have about 600 of these systems installed today. And so if we go to the next slide, see if there's any questions at this point.
Don't see any, Rick. Let's move on.
Okay. Last category here, our EV programs, electric vehicle programs. These are pilots that we've launched earlier this year, where we are talking to connected electric vehicle chargers in the home. You see a photo of one there. These are level 2 chargers, and they're Wi-Fi connected as well. And so we're able to send a signal to the device to limit the charging during the peak time. And you can see, again, these are new programs. We've just rolled these out. We've got 44 customers right now active on this program and growing that every day. If we go to the next slide, it's a similar idea. We provide the customer a rebate for installing that Wi-Fi connected device. And then, but the difference here is, in this case, the customer controls when they charge and don't charge. And we give them basically we ask them to charge off peak. So if they do that, then they earn an incentive for doing so. And this program has 15 customers at this today. And again, this is just launched in April, so it's continuing to grow.
Don't have anything, Rick. Let's go ahead.
Okay, we go to the next section. So participation mapping. What we've included here is some maps. We've got a database. Again, we track every one of these programs very closely. We know who the customers are who participate and take rebates, and so we're able to build graphs and different views. These are samples. We can do more if you like, but what we've done here is just give you a view of all of the programs since the beginning of time to show you where the dollars have been spent in relation to each of the different categories. And again, to your point, Reed, this is inside the city limits by council district. This does not include, and you can see the sort of the blank areas or the gray areas throughout the city. Those are suburban cities. Those are not included in this analysis. And then, of course, Bexar County outside city limits is also not included. There is lots of uptake in those areas, and we've got other graphs that show that, but this was just to try to give you a view of the geographic distribution. So we'll just flip through these next ones. You know, this shows you, I think this is weatherization. This is just the weatherization program. And you can see the allocation there by the council districts. If we go to the next one, This is solar. This is, again, from the beginning of time through FY21. And I do want to point out one thing. You know, for a long time, most of the solar that was being installed was on District 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But if we go to the next slide, as we were putting these charts together, I thought, you know, this was worth pointing out is for the period of 18, 19, 20, 21, the last 4 years, you'll see the District 2, District 3, District 4 have seen significantly more uptake on the solar program. And so that's the type of analysis and tracking that we can do with this database to really bring out some of the trends in the data. So I think with that, I think that was our last slide.
Great job, Rick. Thank you very much. We're going to move right on to Chad. We don't have any questions. I know he's got some stuff to talk about.
I do have a question.
Oh, I didn't see that. I'm sorry, Eloise.
No
And
problem.
I've also been wanting to ask a question for, I think I asked 5 or 6 times.
Who? I'm sorry.
Anita?
Oh, Anita, I didn't see you back in the I didn't see you back in the queue. I'm sorry. Okay, we'll go first to you, Anita.
Or Eloise, you can go first because I know you're on a thing. I can go next.
Thanks, Anita. Appreciate that. I appreciate the council district maps. I think that's very geared towards council members. But the question that I'm really asking is around income. There are poor people and there are rich people in every single district. And so wanting to understand how many programs are actually geared towards low income residents in San Antonio, our low income ratepayers, those 50% plus that struggle to pay their bills. You know, how many get to actually take advantage of these programs other than weatherization, right? And so I really want to understand what that is. And I think that these maps do not, I think they're very geared towards the kind of thing that you talk to at council and saying, look, your district got this much and your district got that much. But if we can even just tell from the solar one in District 5, which struggles with home ownership, with rental, with a lot of rental units. I think also having what are the limitations to these programs, roof and foundation, that doesn't allow low-income folks to be able to participate. And this kind of ties back to the other question that I made earlier. If we're spending $15,000 to support a customer, a for-profit customer, then maybe we can look at how do we actually improve the situation so that we have more reliable revenue and affordability for those folks, instead of just kind of constantly choking them and then spending so much money for staff and resources to try to keep them up. And when we think about also the barriers for low-income folks in accessing these programs, for assistance, you have to go in each and every time to get assistance. But, you know, a solar or one of these other programs, you do it once and the benefits keep coming. And so there's a low barrier to actually participating in these different types of programs. So I really want us to be able to understand, because regardless of where we are at, I think as a public utility in this time, in this day and age, and considering the pandemic, considering understanding the brunt of the impacts fall on the same people of our community, how do we contribute to that systematic oppression of people that don't have the resources to be able to recover? And so our programs need to be geared as a public utility. I think there's an opportunity to revisit this. And so I want us to be able to really provide recommendations. We need to be understanding how this program is performing already. How does it serve? How is it perpetuating, you know, income, grab on people. And so, we need to be able to kind of understand that ultimately that is really why I'm here and I'm wanting to understand these programs.
Yeah, Eloisa, you're asking a good question. I've had dialogue with our current board about, what I've been speaking to is trying to get an understanding, a baseline for what has driven this activity up to this point, and it hasn't been. We do have weatherization primarily is the program that you're going to find the low income, community in. Part of the problem with residential energy efficiency program, replacing your AC, putting in central heating and air, it takes an investment by the homeowner, that we help offset to a certain degree through a rebate. But the biggest challenge is, how do you pay for, the other portion that the rebate does not cover? We have done everything possible to try to get our solar installers to offer. That's how we came up with the roof rental program. For those who can't spend $30,000 on a solar system, we'll rent your roof that costs no capital up front, and you'll get a return, for the production that comes to CPS Energy for that, assuming that your roof is structurally sound enough to be able, and is pointed in the right direction, and all of the elements that we need to make, to make it an effective system. So there's an area of opportunity as we think, into the future about the programs. But, again, if you listen, based on some of the dialogue we've had here today, there's, I think, a general, our goal was to offer as many programs that bring in as broad of our customer base into it, so that, everybody felt like, even if I didn't pay for it, maybe my business got a benefit for it, or I got a neighbor, or my mother, or father, or whoever, and I know somebody who has benefited from STEP. So the driver hasn't necessarily been income-based. We have tried to capture as much of our customer base as we can to buy into the benefit of the STEP program for our entire community. I think what we're talking about here is a different focus. It's a different cross-section of programs that are, focused differently, whose goals look different than what STEP has looked at. If we're going to get to a program that's kind of specific to what you're, what you're interested in here. And we do have council members who've asked, hey, what if we just did a low-income STEP program that benefited those most needy? We can create a program. That's not what the current program is, but there is a way to develop a STEP that focuses on that if that's what our community is asking for.
Okay. Eloisa, can we move to Anita?
Yes, I want to just say one more thing. I appreciate all those words. I really want the data. I think it's important that our community understands who benefits from these programs.
Okay. Anita, sorry, I didn't see your name in the queue. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. There's a lot of activity over here. And it actually gave me a moment, Reed, to clarify my question, because I have a lot swimming around up here. I guess first I just want to say thank you so much, Rudy, and everybody from CPS for the presentation so far. It's very helpful. Thanks a lot, Rick. I guess again, it's like a question, or more, I think something that would be helpful in the future. I try to first ask myself if I understand the nature of what something is, and then do I understand the problem? And then basically, things kind of are a little bit more black and white for me in that way when I start at that. And so when I look at this, I think we had a really interesting discussion around what Michael and what Eloisa were asking kind of previously, or some of the points that they were making. I think that, for me, if we had something that in front of everyone that was kind of very straightforward in terms of this is what, again, back to STEP. I mean, we started it because of this. It was cheaper than building new generation. When we start getting to some of the devils of the detail here, like, for example, back to, well, who's benefiting, right? And I'm not talking immediately about the level upon what Eloisa is addressing right now, which is a very important aspect to this. and something that's very important to me as well. I'm just going to start with this higher level discussion, which is, for example, when we were talking about, you know, the utility versus the participant benefit, right? Well, and I think that that's a very important differentiation, but at the same time, I would love to see some information about how those two things are what I like to call the double down benefit. Because really, you know, again, it all kind of goes back to, and correct me if I'm wrong here, you know, the nature of like what's happening. We are a municipally owned utility. That means that we're on a cost recovery model. That means the UCT or the utility benefit here is literally the citizens, the people within the city of San Antonio who own that. And it's one of our guiding principles to keep it affordable, you know, all of the things, right? But again, cost recovery model. So really it's like pulling that out doesn't, it again, because of the nature of it being a cost recovery model and that we're municipally owned, that utility benefit, I think, you know, back to it is the people of San Antonio. The double down is on the participant level, right? Like who is directly on bill because they participated in that one program getting a double down benefit, right? I'm in a peak saver program. I have solar, I have whatever, you know, whatever those specific rebates are. But at the end of the day, and I would like more clarification about that double down, about like, yeah, I mean, I think it's all kind of wrapped together. There's just two layers, right? The owners of the CPS utility on a cost recovery model, that benefit in terms of saving generation, right? And all of that is in the flow of funds, right? That whole shebang about how conservation is cheaper is reflected in the flow of funds. And then the second part is, again, this level of the participant benefit. And I think that, you know, Chad said it best also. I think that there's another important piece here. And Chad, a while back, you said something really basic and it was really enlightening, and we know it to be true. And that is inefficiency. The inefficient customer drives the cost for everyone else. So, you know, that's another, I think, an important aspect to look at. But again, I guess my point here is just to say, I would love to see a step 101, 2 slides.
Yeah.
Subsection A, we did it because it's cheaper. Here's the nature of what we're doing. This is why, because we own it. And I think that that's the thing that's missing. You know, it's just kind of, you need to start with the beginning.
Anita, we absolutely agree. I agree. And I think we need to work on that. We're pressed on time here. Don't mean to cut anybody off, but we got one more question from Al. And I don't know if we have citizens that are waiting to talk or not. Can someone answer?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, Al, we'll go to you.
All right. On these weatherization and STEP programs, usually, and we're talking about the low income residents, a lot of times they're in rental homes, and we qualify the resident, not the homeowner. So the resident will get a lower utility bill, but actually we're improving the property. Does the property owner or the landlord, can we get them to buy in on this at all? I mean, can we tell the landlord, you know, if you do this, this, and this, we will rebate you 50% or 25% or whatever, you know, we qualify the program as we do the commercial industrial clients?
Yeah, Al, really good question. So if it's a home that is being rented, the owner has to sign off on the improvements, and that's across all of our programs. Anytime it's a rental situation, you know, we'll need to have that owner grant approval. To your point, I think some of the challenges with rentals, for example, an air conditioning unit, you know, if the person is not living in the home, they call it the split incentive, right? That there's not an incentive to the property owner to make the upgrade since they don't live there, right? It's not, in most cases, it's not their electric bill. And so they don't see a benefit, and consequently, they will not make the improvement. So I think that's a challenge. We've tried to tackle it through the rebate programs. Not going to say we've solved it. I think it continues to be a challenge across the entire industry, and it's something that Rudy mentioned new and innovative programs that we put out an RFP. That was one of the things we identified in there, was looking for solutions for multifamily, duplexes, those types of situations, and program ideas to help us kind of address that challenge.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, we're got a little time left. Sorry, Chad, we kind of cut into your time.
Hey, that's okay. Sometimes I need to be given a time limit so that I don't get a little too verbose, a little too wordy. And I can do it pretty quick here. Adrian, if you want to bring up my presentation, I've got some contextual commentary at the beginning that I want to talk through. I want to give you some kind of detail on how we see the RAC participating in a upcoming rate request, because that's ultimately what the RAC was created for, and that has been our intention with the first 3 months of intensive learning sessions, is to get everybody in the RAC up to speed as quickly as possible so that we could benefit from your input during this process. So let me talk about the process a little bit. When we get to a point financially where we decide we don't have an option, we have to go for rate request, we will start talking to our board first. That is always going to be our first conversation, because our trustees guide, they're sort of the gate for what we do next. Now in May, we gave them a super high level overview. We showed a range of a potential rate increase. We called it the provisional rate increase because it was already built into the budget, but we assured them that they aren't actually approving the rate case, the rate request, that would come later. And fast forward a few months, last Monday on August 30th, we shared what we called the preview of the rate request. And again, we showed a range. Now it was a little bit tighter range, and it was updated from the May version, but it was still just a preview. We didn't provide them the actual recommendation. And so our next step is we will go back to our board, and we think we are going to do this very soon, and we will sort of officially announce that we are going to do a rate request. From there, during that meeting, we actually ask for their support to start our stakeholder engagement process, our community engagement process. From there, we spend the next 4 to 6 weeks talking to customers, talking to media, working with the Office of Public Utilities over at the City of San Antonio. We'll actually present to City Council a couple of times. We'll talk to our CAC, and we'll talk to our RAC, our RAC. The first working group around rate requests has a lot to do with the rate request, as you would expect. So we will be talking to them about the rationale and the drivers for the rate request during those working group meetings. This working group around rate design, it has a very long-term focus, medium and long-term focus in some respects, because when we do a rate redesign, it's going to take time. It's going to take time for us to determine what the ideal path forward is, and it's going to take time to implement that ideal path. But there are some short-term things that I want to share with this group that we're looking to do in this upcoming rate request. And so the slides that I'm about to walk you through are kind of highlight contextual slides that talk about what we're looking to do, but not the specifics, because that will come after my next conversation with my board. And from there, the third working group around generation, that's also a very long-term focus. So I really see the first 2 working groups, and the third if they want to, of course, but I see the first 2 working groups being very involved in the rate request process. From there, after that kind of 4 to 6 week period, we will go back to our board and ask for their approval on some actual numbers. Based on our conversations with the community and our refinement of our proposal, our recommendation, we will go back to our board and ask for their approval. Then it goes to City Council for a vote a few weeks later. And so this is all potentially happening very, very soon. But I wanted to make sure that we've been clear enough about what your role in that process is going to be. Okay, so for this presentation, I call this the first step to improving our rate design because the full step or the full journey is going to take some time, but I do think we have an opportunity in this rate request to take a small step forward in the right direction. Adrian, go ahead and turn to the next slide. So what's going on with rate designs? Well, we spent a lot of time talking with Brattle about this in July, I believe, I guess end of June and July. They're changing. Rate designs are changing. Every utility on the face of the earth is trying to solve this riddle of fixed costs versus variable costs, and also caring about sustainability and trying to drive energy efficiency. There's a number of reasons, and you know, I won't read them, but you can see them on the slide. There's a number of reasons why that creates challenges, right? Because the current rate design schemas are designed for a day and age where these technologies and these drivers just didn't exist. And so it creates financial pressures. When we talk about rate designs, Adrian, go ahead and move to slide 3. There's a number of different alternatives that we will talk through. And I've listed some on the page. We have talked about several of these over the last few months. I think the ones that we will talk most about are probably time of use and inclining block pricing structures, because I know that there's some folks on our committee that have an interest in seeing the implications of that approach. There's also some things that we'll talk about as alternatives, potential alternatives to net metering. Those are listed under the other bucket, buy all, sell all, and net billing. It's just a different arithmetic logic for calculating the bill. But we're going to talk through all of these, and based on our sort of prioritized objectives of rate design, that'll let us hone in on what is our future state. Next slide, please. We know that where we go in the future needs to be very flexible. Customer needs and expectations have evolved considerably. We want it to be future-proof. We want it to effectively align the fixed and variable costs. And this working group is going to be a part of those discussions, both in the immediate term and longer term. The full rate redesign, like I said, is really going to take some time. I mean, I see that being a 12 to 24-month process. It's going to take time for us to pick and then align on a rate design for the future of CPS Energy. Then it's going to take time to implement, and putting it into a billing system, that's a whole another step that takes a lot of time. But as I said at the beginning, what I really want to do is in the immediate term, I want to take one step forward that increases the fixed charges on the bill as part of this rate request. Next slide, Adrian. Please. So you have all seen a version of this chart before. We've added a bar in the middle. So on the left, you see residential. On the right, you see commercial and industrial. And Ann is laughing at me here in real time at my typo in the title, so please ignore that. I apologize. The bars in the middle, the target revenue, that's a hypothetical target, but that's what we're trying to accomplish, right? We've got current revenue from residential that's 7% from fixed charges on the bill, while 60% of their cost to serve is fixed, right? Same story for commercial and industrial. The point is, I want to take a small step forward. I want to put most of the increase in the customer's bill, the increase in our funding level, I want to put most of that into the fixed components on the bill. And so next, I've got 3 different scenarios to kind of help you visualize what I'm talking about here. So slide 6, this is our first one. It's 100% increase. 100% of the increase is built into the fixed charge. So you can see the current at the top block of numbers, and the new is the bottom block of numbers. The SAC is our service availability charge. That's our fixed monthly charge. So in this example, every bit of my revenue increase is going into that fee. It would go from $8.75 up to almost $21. And the variable energy charge wouldn't change. And what that would do is every customer, regardless of their usage level, would see the same monthly increase in their bill. In this example, it's $12.08. And this is directionally what we're looking at, right? But that means it's a much larger percentage increase for low usage customers, 20% versus 7%. So that's pretty, that's pretty extreme. Frankly, this is what we should do because fixed cost is where we're misaligned. But I'm not sure that's the right answer. So what if we tone it down a little bit? Slide 7, this one shows, slide 7, Adrian, if you don't mind. There we go, thanks. This one shows 75% of the increase being built into the fixed charge. So the 875 doesn't go up to 2080, it goes up to 1785. But the variable charge increases a little bit. It goes from 10.8 cents to 11 cents. And then you can see it's no longer a 20% increase for the 500 kilowatt hour a month customer, it's a 17%. And my high usage 1500 a month kilowatt hour, instead of going up only 7%, they go up a little bit more than that. Now the next slide is my 50-50 scenario. If I put roughly half of the increase into the fixed charge and half of it into the variable component, you can see there if they would take it to $15.11.3 roughly. I'm starting to create a little bit. It's starting to create a little bit of equilibrium there, right? So the bill increase for a 500 kilowatt hour a month customer is $874 versus the bill increase for a 1500 kilowatt hour customer is $13.99. To me, this is going too far. This doesn't really help us accomplish anything. I mean, this is what we typically do, is this approach. So I want to come back to you in the next few weeks to a month and share an actual recommendation. This is purely sort of illustrative because I want to introduce the topic to you. I will end with saying that in the past, what I get is feedback about low-income customers and low-usage customers. Doesn't this approach of putting more into the fixed charges hurt low-income customers? And I would tell you, it treats everybody equally. So Adrian, go ahead and turn to slide 9. What you're seeing here is 2 lines that represent a histogram for our affordability discount program customers versus our non-ADP customers. So our limited income segment of customers, the orange line, the way to read this is that first dot on the chart, call it 5%. That means 5% of the bills.
Obviously, I have no choice, but.
Thanks. The way to read this is that first dot on the orange line, 5% of the affordability discount program bills that we send out the door have less than or equal to 250 kilowatt hours on that bill. Okay, the next dot is roughly 13% of the bills have usage levels between 250 and 500. So it's a histogram, that's how you read it. The important thing about this slide is that the blue line and the orange line are right on top of each other. So what that means is our low-income folks and our non-limited income segment have very similar usage patterns. What we find is that our limited income folks, they often have more people living in the same household. They often have less of an ability to implement energy efficiency measures like buying a new air conditioner. And so they are just as likely to have moderate to high usage as everybody else is. So the approach that I outlined on prior slides, it's not biased towards one income level or another, but it does help create more parity around the fixed components of the bill versus the fixed costs on the bill. And so again, I'll come back in a few weeks and we'll talk more specifically about what we are recommending. And that's all I've got, Reed, but I can see lots of questions.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, we've got some folks in the queue here. Peter, you're first. Peter, you're first in the queue.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. All right. Yeah, and I'm gonna make it real short because you answered my question when you were going through that, and I think I'm good with the lower income and the usage levels, because that was going to be my question about how you address that fixed rate increase, and it's across the board as you were kind of talking through it. So I'm good. Thank you.
Michael, you're next.
Yeah, my question is along those lines, but not necessarily by income level, but by what's the real cost, that infrastructure cost in different areas? In other words, can you really tell me the infrastructure cost to a 1,500 square foot home in a community with small homes is the same per customer as it is in a community with 3,000 and 4,000 square foot homes? I think you're putting larger transformers, you're putting larger service lines. So if I broke this up to multiple levels, 2 or 3 levels of that fixed cost, it wouldn't necessarily be by income, it would be by the service level and what it really costs. In other words, those larger homes might pay more because it costs us more to provide service to those larger homes. Maybe I'm incorrect, but the logic to me tells me that if I know these estates all are going to use more power, I'm going to have to put bigger transformers in those areas. I'm going to have to put bigger distribution lines in those areas, and that cost per customer goes up. So why not tier it out to 2 or 3 sizes of homes and then divide that properly over?
Yeah, Michael, thank you for that question. You are exactly right. Infrastructure, the cost of infrastructure to serve a customer depends on how they use the system, right? We've talked about that. There's 3 buckets of cost that we've talked about. One is customer costs. Those do not depend on how a customer uses the system for the most part. Then there's demand-related costs. Those do depend on how the customer uses the system. And then there's energy costs. That's kind of the variable component. What we're wanting to do is put more of the increase into the fixed charge up to the point where we're at the customer-specific costs of a customer. So in other words, if a customer has a 800 square foot home, or if they have a 2,500 square foot home, the cost of their meter and the cost of printing their bill and mailing it to them is equal between the two. So we're not yet into that territory where maybe I'm penalizing one set of customers and rewarding another set of customers. We're kind of focused in on
distribution system between those customers is much different. And what you just talked, printing bills and putting a meter in, is a very small percentage of that infrastructure cost.
And we'll show you in our, so at the, what meeting was that? The August 19th meeting, I think? Maybe it was the August 5th meeting. We showed from our cost of service, what is our customer-related cost for residential, what is our demand-related cost for residential, and what is our energy-related cost for residential. Those customer costs are $21 a month for a residential customer, regardless of size. So we have some headroom to go before we exceed that. But I would agree with you. If I came in here and said, I want a $50 a month flat monthly charge, then we would have to talk about, is that the right amount for every customer? Because it would not be.
But why are we not talking about that even at this level? Why can't there be 2 tiers? And a tier of larger homes pays, I'm just pulling numbers out of the air, an extra, that demand cost goes up to $25 a month, and for the smaller homes it goes to $15 a month, or but 2 levels to show a little bit of equity in there as to the real costs of that infrastructure. I know we can't break it down into 20 different levels and then figuring out how you assign a level, but certainly we could easily break that down to 2 or 3 levels and show some equity there. Over.
Yeah, I mean, we'll look at it. The challenge with residential rates is we don't have demand charges. Now we have launched AMI infrastructure, and so we should be able to measure demand. But I just don't have that fee component on the bill. And so I understand what you're talking about, and we will have this conversation. It's just going to take a longer conversation because now we're talking about a bigger restructure to rates.
Well, and Chad, if I might, I'm sorry for butting in here. I mean, that precisely is why the RAC exists. I mean, if that's what you think the board ought to consider as part of a rate restructure, then by all means, coalesce around a recommendation, and that is why the RAC is here. Our goal is to present you kind of a background of what we're doing, and then allow you to make some decisions about how you think things should be, that the board will ultimately take into account as they they deliberate. So I just kind of want to come back to, you know, the reason this committee exists is to provide that type of input to the board. So, you know, whether staff agrees or doesn't agree, I think that's besides the point. You know, we want to give you as much information to allow you to make thoughtful recommendations that you feel take us in the right direction. So Michael, I don't think it's it's agree or disagree. If that's what you want to recommend, then I think that's the RAC will have to figure out how to make those deliberations. But certainly that that is something that the RAC can consider.
Thank you, Rudy. We got a question from Dee Dee.
Actually, I have a couple of questions. I wanted to know how y'all identify low-income folks. And then I just want to clarify, I got this right. So I think you said that like within a month, y'all would, come to us with a recommendation, but y'all plan on going to the board in, maybe less than a couple of weeks with that same recommendation. If that's the case, would we be able to see that at least, maybe not in an actual meeting, but would we see that before our next meeting?
Yeah, thanks for those questions, Dee Dee. First, how do we identify the low income for the chart that I just showed you? That's based on people that have applied for and been accepted into our affordability discount program. Now, we do not do income verification, but we do have some, rules around who's eligible for it. And currently we have, I think, about 52,000 electric customers that are participants. So yes, there are some limited income, low income folks that are in the non-ADP bucket on that chart because they have not sought to participate in the program, or we have not contacted them effectively enough to get them to participate in the program. But that's how we delineate between the two. And on your second question, so yeah, we are targeting within a week or two to present some information to our board that I would say is our preliminary recommendation, right? It's tightening that guidance just a little bit more from the preview down to our actual recommendation. And they're the first ones that see that. But the point of that meeting is not for us to ask their approval on those numbers. We're showing them those numbers and then telling them that we sure would like their support in going to talk to our community about those numbers. So we're sharing the numbers with them, but they won't approve the numbers until we have feedback from our community. And so after that, then we'll be able to share them with this group.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I think we've gone a little bit long here. I appreciate everybody's attention. I see one more question from Al.
And I also asked a question.
Huh? Well, I'm not seeing you show up here.
So sorry.
I'm seeing everybody but you. Are you in the chat or are you in the question?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Well, I apologize because I'm
That's
looking
all
right
right.
at it. It isn't like I can't see. I mean, I'm not real good at it, but what's the question? Please, we're running close to time.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to go very quickly here. Again, I just want to say thank you to everybody for today was really educational for me. It was wonderful. It comes down to this. Like, I think that I would like to see, the public, ourselves, and certainly City Council and the Board of Trustees have a real bottom line about, hey, here's what's mission critical. And I think that sometimes, like, there's so much to learn and there's a lot of terms here that I think the average person can't see the forest for the trees, truly. And I think that if we, again, I want to end with how I began with is we need a bottom line explanation on some of these things that, for me, I think for a lot of us, as we learn so much information, different things kind of jump out at us. But I think that's, painting that picture simplistically, in terms of like, this is kind of the nature of what's happening here and the nature of who we are and what we do, cost recovery model, that kind of the basic stuff, which again, has been presented to us through in various ways, I think that we need to kind of boil it down for the average person. I will also just very quickly say that, you know, my understanding, and I'm very privileged to be a part of this group, my understanding and my short-term goal here is to understand, as you mentioned, Chad, to understand and kind of vet this process, to give our commentary, how we can improve, or to ask questions about the suggested rate increases that is going to be coming this fall, and really, you know, hopefully at the end of the day, to either be a, you know, to be supportive of it if the members see fit to do that. So I'm going to just go back to, I feel like there's so much information, we need that communication tool, and I would like to see that moving forward in the future. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Anita. And you're going to have to figure out how I can see you on the chat, because that's not going to work if we can't. Al's passed his question. It had to do with the hidden cost of technology, and we appreciate his understanding on our time, because we've got to get back on a new call, a third call here. So thank y'all very much, and we are adjourned.